Welcome back to another Poly Bridge 2 video. Today I am going to be looking through each and every one of my designs for World 5 of Poly Bridge 2. I'm going to walk you through how I completed each level and hopefully give you some tips on how you too can beat Poly Bridge 2 World 5. So, starting off today with level 5-1, Brake Pad, let's get into it. So, Brake Pad is a fairly simple level. You have a truck which must hit its stopping checkpoint down here and then rebound back into its flag. So you have a fairly simple bridge that spans the left side of the level, and then you need some sort of roadblock that will allow the truck to spring forward to hit its checkpoint and then push it back. The trick with this is that any roads you build in this middle bridge here will just fall through. So if you want to build any sort of structure, it needs to be to the left of this joint here so that it is on solid ground. In saying that, I just used a couple of springs that are ever so slightly compressed, and I found that that was enough to stop the truck and then rebound it back into its flag. That might take a little bit of tweaking just to make sure that you get it right, but that is a fairly simple solution to level 5-1. Level 5-2, sorting. So what is going to happen is A is going to go and stop, and then C is going to go and stop, and then E will go all the way through, and then C will go again, and then A will go again. And between each of the cars going, you have a single hydraulic phase. What I did was create a multi-level holding system for the cars that just stores them temporarily underneath the bridge while other cars drive on top. And using these sort of mini bridges on the side, I was able to make it so that I only needed one extra layer, and then these sides will come down and the C car will just drive over the top nicely. We then have these sides come back up nicely before our C car, our limo, drives across, and then our bridge will raise once again, allowing our first A car to then drive across and hit its flag. This again is a fairly simple level, doesn't require any major tweaking. You just need to make sure that you get your hydraulic phases correct, and then it should be a fairly simple level. On to level 5-3, Springboard. This is a very easy level. All you need is some sort of bridge on the left side here, a catching road on the right side, and then enough reinforcement of these two roads here so that your springs, which will start very, very compressed, don't shoot up to start with. If we get rid of any of these reinforcements, your bridge springs up and breaks straight away. But with those reinforcements, it's enough to hold steady until our bike rides onto its stop sign. We then shoot it upwards, and it can drive onto its flag. Nice and simple. On to the next level, level 5-4, Leverage. This level involves a plane that drives straight through the middle of where you would want your bridge to be. So you need to have some sort of folding road so that you can avoid the plane when it flies through at the start, and then push the bridge up so that your C car can drive across. The way I did that was with a couple of springs down the bottom, a small one that is slightly stretched and a large one that is slightly compressed, which will push this bridge out of the way of the plane. We then use the dump truck to push that bridge into place, allowing C to drive over and back. The point of this extra road here, although nothing will drive on it, it allows for a much nicer pushing surface for B, which allows it to go into place nicely. This level may require a fair amount of tweaking, but it is fairly simple design once you understand that. This sort of design here is known as mechanical lock, because once there is a state change in the bridge, this piece will now be locked in place up the top here. It will never swing back to its original position. This design is fairly precise because you need to have enough give in the spring to allow C to drive up while still being strong enough for it to have a shallow enough incline so that it can actually drive up this folding section of the bridge. Once that happens though, the way back is fairly easy, and we hit our last flag. On to the next level, level 5 truck way in. So in this level, we will start by having our flatbed truck as well as our 2 obstacles go at the same time. We then need our bridge to transform so that our 2 C vehicles can drive down the bridge and up to their flags on the very left of the level. The main part of this is having a bridge that is reinforced enough from below so that all of your vehicles, which do get quite heavy, can drive over them nicely. Once you get that solved, you just need a nice simple rotation of the right side of the bridge. This will allow it to clip into place onto the top joint, giving extra stability to the bridge when the C vehicles drive over it. And then just a quite simple design here, which will cause this bridge to contract down once A has gone, creating a nice ramp for the C vehicles to drive up. That does not need to be super reinforced, I found, so you can definitely manage to save some money there. Having your joint connect to this right side before the C vehicles go is very important though, because it does give the bridge the stability it needs to be able to stay up when these vehicles drive across. If you cannot get that joint to connect, you are going to struggle with this level. And after spending just a little while waiting, we can complete the level nicely. So looking at that again, your 2 main points, you want to have this joint connect down because that will increase the strength of this sort of ramp section on the left by an incredible amount and allows you to save a lot of money there. The second thing I want to note is that if you're trying to get this right side of the bridge to connect to the top joint, your best point of action is trying to get whatever point you rotate around on your bridge exactly halfway between those 2 joints. The vertical distance from the joint we rotate around to either one of the 2 joints on the right is exactly the same at 1.5 meters. If you do that, it will be quite easy to get your bridge to rotate, no matter where along the horizontal axis you have your point of rotation. With those tips in mind, you should be able to beat this bridge fairly simply. On to the next bridge, Spring and a Miss. The point of this level is that we have our small A and B cars come to the top of the level. We then have a C car, which is much heavier, weighed down the bridge enough that it will drop out, allowing the C car and then the D car after it to reach the flags at the bottom of the level. I ended up using this sort of a design with 5 different springs. The top springs are all slightly compressed and the bottom spring is neutral. What this will allow is our bridge to shoot up just a little bit, which will allow our cars to drive over the top of it without bending down too far. However, once the heavy camper van drives across, the whole upper section of the bridge will fall down, allowing access to the bottom 2 flags. As we can see here, when our camper van drives up, this mechanical lock will pop to the right, and once it does that, it will never come back up. Using that design, we are able to have this really nice section here and complete the level quite simply. When this springs down, you're going to have a lot of forces exerted on the bridge, which is why if you have a look at the very left of the level, I have this spring here which is slightly stretched. That's just going to act as a dampener for your bridge and allow it a little bit of extra movement. There is also another spring down here, which is neutral. It's just a very small spring, and it just gives a little bit of extra give to the level as well. There is some tweaking involved in order to get the springs to line up nicely, but once that is done, it should be a fairly simple level. Level 5-7 is next, trading places. You have your A car and your B car, which must flip positions when they cross this gap. So you need your A car to drive along the bottom to start with, and then jump up to the top of the level on its way back to the left. The B car needs to do the exact opposite. It starts on top of the level and then drives down below. This is a fairly simple level to work out. You might need to tweak a few aspects of the bridge to get your jumps to work out nicely, but the overall idea of the bridge is fairly simple to implement. You just want a jump on the left for B and a jump on the right for A, allowing them to switch places when they drive over. Dealing with stress as well as budget are two main factors for this bridge. Halfway through now, and we have level 5-8 passing by. In this level we have our dump truck A hit its checkpoint before B starts going. B, however, then needs to get over A and get into the cubby on the right side of the level before A does. In order to do this, I have this mess of roads perched upon the dump truck and just allow B to drive on top of A. The important aspect that I found with this level is making sure that B is slowed down enough so that whilst it does reach its checkpoint before A, it does not do so before reaching the end of the bridge, because if it does that, it would spear down into the bridge, causing it to just break off, like so. With this nice little angled road here, I was able to slow down the B car enough that it didn't hit the bridge, but instead fell onto the ground right in front of its checkpoint. And if we watch that now, we'll see that it will get caught on this angled piece of road, slowing it down just a moment before it drives over. Once it drives over, it will fall down onto the road and then just drive into its cubby. Your main issue with this level will be dealing with stress. Having this mess of roads on top of the dump truck adds a lot of weight, which means your bridge will need to be much more reinforced than you might originally think. In particular, you'll want to be aware of the fact that whenever your car interacts with the truck, whenever it first gets on or gets off or hits that angled piece of road, there will be a sharp increase in the amount of stress within your bridge. But if you can engineer your bridge to accommodate those spikes in the stress levels, you should find that you're able to complete this level fairly easily. Level 5-9 is then called Falling Into Place, where we have our A car drive across to its flag, a C car drive across to its flag, and an E car drive across to its flag. The catch with this level is that you only have enough roads to bridge this gap once. So, in order to beat this level, you need your bridge to be able to fall down. The way you do this is you have the entirety of the bridge fall off after the A car drives across, which we will see now. And then you have subsequently smaller amounts of the bridge fall off after the C car drives across. Using these sort of triangular spring devices works really well because it allows the bridge to fall down nicely without experiencing large amounts of stress. And with the 2 extra roads that you're given, you're able to create platforms on the right side of the level for your C car and then your E car to drive up. With that, you're able to mitigate the one major flaw with this design, which is that your bridge is not very stable. You can see as C drives across, the whole bridge shakes to the left and then back to the right, but having that extra road there mitigates that issue entirely. You might find that your right side of the bridge, your right side of the original bridge is breaking when it hits against the ground here. One way I've found, since building this bridge to deal with that, is to just make all of these split joints. And doing so will actually allow those pieces of material to just fall through the level. As you can see here, that section of the bridge just fell through instead of falling against the road here. So if you're having problems with pieces breaking when your bridge falls down, that is something that you should know. If you have any split joints, when they hit into the level, they'll just pass through entirely. With the next level now, level 510, In Suspense. This level is fairly easy. It's just a 56-meter long gap that you must traverse with a tanker truck. The two large pirate ships below the level mean that you can't have an under-over design. However, you have these really large towers on both the left and the right of the level, which allows you to make this really nice tension bridge design. How that works is you just connect wires or rope to the middle of your bridge to hold it up, and you just need to be careful that you support your bridge enough for the tanker to be able to drive across it nicely. Without steel, it can get a bit difficult, but using this design is known as a wooden muscle. It's essentially 5 pieces of wood where you would normally have 1, and it greatly increases the strength of the material. You can see that I have used them extensively within this design to beef up the middle of this bridge. In a sense, they work very similar to how steel would, just being a stronger type of material than regular wood. With that being said, your main concern for this level is going to be your budget. Even without steel, it is very easy to go over budget. I obviously had to save this level, and still only got just over $1,000 under budget. So, using that design underneath just allows you to create a stronger bridge, but once again, not a particularly difficult level to complete. It might take some time to reinforce your bridge appropriately, but it is definitely a very doable level. The next level, level 511. This, I think, was the toughest level for me within World 5 of the Polybridge campaign. This level involves your A car hitting 3 checkpoints in a row, which requires you to lift and lower these sort of smaller bridges, of which there are 3. However, you only have 1 hydraulic to use. My solution for this involves connecting that single hydraulic to all 3 of the mini bridges, and then just rotating them using this design. How this works, you essentially have 2 static joints on the right of every bridge, which then connect down to your bridge proper. This section here, being a perfect parallelogram, allows you to nicely rotate your bridge through 90 degrees. With that being said, your main issue in this level is just figuring out the proper design to use. If you want to, you can just take this design. This is probably the most simplistic design to use for this level. There are others that get a little more complicated, but this is probably the easiest design you can use. And it just uses the cable on the left and the steel muscle on the right to transfer the movement of this hydraulic to both the left and the right bridges. But if you want to try the level for yourself, just know that once you get one bridge working, it is very easy to then get the other 2 working as well. On to the next level, level 512, Gettin Loopy. This level is just a large loop-de-loop where you have to hit 2 different checkpoints before hitting the flag. The most important thing to know for this level, and something that I struggled with on both the normal and challenge versions of this level, is that you do not need to hit the checkpoints in order. In this level I hit A2 and then A1 and then the flag, and I can still complete the level easily. It might take a while just to get your positionings correct for your bridge components, but once you do that, it's fairly simple. You've got a very high budget, so you don't need to worry about that necessarily, and it is a fairly easy level to complete. If you're having troubles with losing momentum and speed throughout the level, the best solution for that is simply using more roads. As you can see here, this car is very jittery almost as it's going through this loop-to-loop. And that can be fixed by just having more roads to make a smoother, more continuous surface for the car to drive on. But obviously that was not necessary in my case. You can also do that down the bottom here. That will allow the car to maintain more of its speed going through the loop and then the down and up, allowing you to reach the flag nice and easily. On to the next level, level 513, Crash Course. In this level we have 3 different buses. A1 must get to the right, A2 and A3 must both go to the left. This looks like a very complicated level, but it is fairly simple in the end. We have all 3 of our buses go at the first time, and we start with A1 going up to this top level. We then have A2 come underneath the bridge, and A3 go through the middle. We have a lot of different trapdoor designs here, which just hold each of these miniature bridges in place. And how that then works is that this trapdoor on the left will allow A1 to drive up it, but it will also allow A3 and A2 to come underneath when coming from the right. We have another trapdoor in the middle here, which will allow A3 to drive over the top of it and into its cubbyhole first, and then A2 to push up from underneath afterwards and drive into its flag. We then have an interesting design here, which is going to be on a spring so that, or A2 I should say, this bottom one can drive underneath it before A3 goes. And then we have this bit on top, which is on another spring, which is to allow that piece of road to descend down once A3 has driven underneath it, which will then allow A1 to drive on top of it. So as you can see, there's sort of a traffic jam in the middle of the bridge here, but that ends up not being an issue at all, because all of our trucks are able to get where they need to go nice and easily. And this is going to drop down just a little bit, but allows enough resistance for A1 to drive over the top of it. And then as you can see on the right here, A2 is able to push up this bridge in the middle, allowing it to drive underneath, and then we'll also push up this bridge on the very far left. This level might take some tweaking, as it is quite difficult to get the exact positioning of all of the individual bridges in place, so that your buses will be able to push against them, while still allowing enough resistance for buses to drive on top of them. However, once you get that all sorted, there aren't many other issues. Obviously, as you can see, stress is a small issue. With a very high budget, you definitely have enough money to over-engineer your bridge, which should allow you to beat this level quite easily. 3 levels left now, and we go on to level 514, Bus Routes. In this level, we have 2 different buses. We have our A bus and our C bus, and A needs to move to the right side of the level, hit its flag, and then go to the top, rising 1 level each time it drives, and then C needs to descend each time it drives, going from the right side of the level to its checkpoint on the left and down to its flag on the right. We simply have two hydraulics, one here on the right and one on the left, to allow us to raise our bridge up and drop it down. So this is in effect two different bridges. We have this bottom bridge that goes from A1's starting position to its checkpoint, and this upper bridge that goes from C's starting position to its checkpoint. Those bridges are then connected entirely in the middle and are connected just with vertical pieces on the left and right side. This allows our left and right sections to be raised and lowered together. With that being said, the main issue you might have with this bridge is once again positioning your bridge perfectly between the joints on either side of the level. That allows us to rotate nicely between the joints, adding stability to our bridge. So if we have a look at this, the way the hydraulics in this level work is we will start in this configuration, like I said, with our bridges just connecting our buses to their checkpoints, and we will have no hydraulic changes until each bus hits its checkpoint. Once that happens though, we then have both the left and right sections of our bridge rotate up and down respectively. That will then allow our A bus to access the very top of the level and our C bus to access the very bottom of the level. So a fairly simple level there once you understand how to work the hydraulics of the bridge. You shouldn't have too many issues with this level. The penultimate level of the fifth world is level 515, Acceleration. In this level we have three different cars which have exactly the same characteristics, however their starting points are staggered. What this means is that when they hit this jump, they will all have very different amounts of speed because of their high acceleration. You then need your three cars to hit three different checkpoints and then three different flags. This is another level that I found that I struggled with, especially with the budget. As you can see, I ended up being just $32 under budget on a $100,000 level. The way I work this out is you have one jump that all three cars will fly off of. They then all nicely hit their checkpoints. We then have a bridge down the bottom for our A1 car to drive across, so that once it's jumped it can just drive down the bottom and hit its checkpoint. We then have these sort of ledges that A2 and A3 will drive off of, so when they hit their flags they'll hit those ledges and just continue driving. And when they continue driving they actually have enough initial velocity to then just drive straight into their flags. With that being said, I used another tension design under the bridge for support. I found that that worked best. It was important to anchor the bridge twice on the right side, because otherwise either one of those cables snapped if they were just by themselves. And then on the right here you just have a very simple landing for the A3 car, just a single road and then an unaltered spring. I found that that was enough to properly catch the A3 car, and if we watch this at 100% speed it is very hard to follow, but with this sort of a design you should be able to easily get all three cars to hit their checkpoints and then their flags at the end. Once again, your main issue with this bridge is going to be balancing your budget with the level of stress in your bridge. But with springs, you could definitely use spring dampeners on the right and the left sides of your bridge to decrease the overall stress felt by it. I found that that wasn't necessary with my design, but it could definitely be helpful for you to beat this level. The last level of World 5 then is level 516 Double Duty. This was another level that I had a lot of difficulty with. Again, a single hydraulic level, but in this case, we need to lower a bridge on the left and raise a bridge on the right at the same time. We start by having both A cars go, so A1 and A2. A1 will drive onto this bridge and then stop, and A2 will hit this stopping checkpoint down the bottom here. We then have one hydraulic phase before before the large boat flies through, by which point you need to have moved this bridge on the left out of the way of the boat before A1 will then go again and reach its flag up on the top right. We then have another hydraulic phase before A2 continues on to stop at this bridge, and your F car will drive across into the center where its checkpoint is. We then have one final hydraulic phase before A2 then is lifted up and drives into the center to its flag. With that being said, the design I used involves having a single hydraulic that is going to rotate in, which lifts up this right side of the bridge. There's a lot of weight underneath to add stability to the bridge, because I found without that it was rocking a lot and was not quite stable enough for the A cars to drive off it nicely. And then I have this left bridge which cuts away in the middle just far enough along to avoid the left side of the bridge from hitting the boat when it flies through, and then connecting the right side of the bridge to our single hydraulic. When this hydraulic then contracts, this rope will stay in tension, which will cause this whole section of the bridge to drop down. And if you can get a nice design on this right section of the bridge, you will completely avoid the boat while also avoiding hitting against this wall. So as you can see, when our hydraulic goes, we lock in place to this added split joint on the right side of the level, and as you can see, our bridge on the left completely avoids the boat. We then go back down, restoring the level to its original state, and then you will see that the A camper van hits its checkpoint and just stops in the middle of the bridge before the F car drives to the middle of the level. One final thing to note is we have this additional road here on the left side, which just allows the camper van to drive onto nicely before hitting its flag. If you want something a little bit nicer, you could probably add a second split joint on the right side of the level here that the bridge would connect to when carrying the camper van. You can see now what I was talking about with our bridge not connecting to the same split joint while carrying the camper van, and thus requiring the catching road that you saw on the right side of the level there. And that is how I beat all 16 levels within Polybridge 2's World 5. I hope you found what I talked about today insightful and helpful, and I hope that they will help you to beat these levels as well. In another video soon, I want to look at the World 5 challenge levels, and then also the World 6 levels, now that I have beaten all of those. With that being said, if you found this video helpful, or you just enjoyed watching it, I would greatly appreciate it if you could leave it a like, subscribe if you really want to. And yeah, with that being said, thank you so much for watching. Bye!